Now, it's episode 6 of the Monaghan Way Podcast in association with Northern Sound, with myself, Sean McCaffrey here. And first off, thanks a million to all those that have been catching up on our previous podcasts and those that we've been popping up. Of course, you can get them on YouTube, on the streaming end of things there, on your Spotify and your Apple platforms, and indeed any other platforms that you pick up on your podcast. Thanks for that. You may be familiar with the gentleman that's alongside us because we're back in GA Championship mode again this week, having the break last week, and a break maybe Monaghan will be grateful for as to prepare for this quarter-final, taking on Donegal, Croke Park, and a journey to look forward to, Kieran, this weekend. Hopefully it'll not be the journey that Louth had last weekend when they left Enniskillen and ended up in Sligo to get to Ballybuffet. I think Monaghan know their way to Croke Park.
You had to get the wee dig in, didn't you, for the Louth men, Sean? Absolutely. Yeah, look, I think it's one we're all looking forward to. I know I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's starting, the build-up has really started now, and it's the anticipation of it all and the real sense that we can actually win this game and we have nothing to fear. I'm very confident about it, actually, so I am. Not too many others are. I know Donegal are flying and in good shape, and they're Ulster champions, and you know they've only lost to Tyrone this year, but we got very close to them in St. Gerard's Park during that Ulster campaign, and you know the boys I know would certainly have some regrets with the first half performance, and I suppose we'll talk a wee bit more about that, Sean, as we get into it, but I know Monaghan, I'm very confident, actually, that Monaghan can get over the line on Saturday, Sean.
Well, we'll take your confidence, Kieran, because I'll briefly go back and remind you, you called the game against Down. You said Down to lead at half-time, Monaghan to win it at the end, and that's what transpired. I would argue the two-pointer just before half-time was massive from Rory Beggan, just to narrow that gap down at that time, but it still played out the way you'd seen it.
Yeah, it's not so much the way I seen it. The data suggested that, Sean, so it did, based on both teams' performances up to that point and their scoring averages and, you know, their half-time averages and stuff like that. And I've done something similar here, actually, for this game as well. And it didn't surprise me that Monaghan finished the way they finished, because that's pretty much the way they have been playing all year. And, you know, if we go through it very quickly, it's interesting reading, because it shows Monaghan generally at half-time of in the negative zone of 4 points. And Donegal are roughly around 0 points to plus 1. So that'll tell you that potentially Donegal will be ahead at halftime, or maybe a draw at halftime. And then if you look at the scoring averages, Monaghan are scoring 29 points on average. Donegal are scoring 25.5. So Monaghan just ahead on that one. But the big margin that flips it in Donegal's favour is the average conceded, Sean, where Donegal only concede on average 17 scores per game. Monaghan is at 21.7. So there's a 2-point swing there. And that's why I'm probably very confident that Monaghan can overcome that 2-point swing. And based on Donegal really nullified Monaghan the last day, or main man, you know, Rory Beggan didn't get a shot off for a 2-pointer. And just looking at the stats as well before I come in on how many 2-pointers have been scored in Croke Park, and it's not for pretty reading either. I was a wee bit more optimistic that Rory would be getting a few chances at the 2-pointers, but the last 2 games there's only been 3 2-pointers scored. Dublin only scored 1 the last day out against Cork, so they seem to be that wee bit harder to come by in Croke Park. I don't know if that's the bigger pitch or maybe something to do with the referee and letting a wee bit more of the game flow now instead of pulling up on free kicks and stuff like that. But I still feel that Monaghan have it within them to really go at them. What's going to be very important, Sean, is for Monaghan to dictate the game and not let Donegal dictate it, because there's a lot of talk around this 6-day gap that Donegal had, and you know, as I said previously in the week, that the 6-day turnaround probably isn't the big factor here. The big factor is the cumulative games that they would have had played, 9 games over 12 weeks. So they'll be perfectly fresh and perfectly recovered in them 6 days, but it's the cumulative effect that it might have on them. And that's why I think with Monaghan's pace and energy and freshness coming into this, the last 5 or 10 minutes is going to be crucial.
Yeah, and that's the interesting aspect of it. And in my own head, I was thinking Monaghan need to come flying out of the blocks at the start, because Donegal could be flagging a bit because they are making this thing about the number of games they played. But as you rightly said, if you keep with them and can go with them, it's maybe the last 10, 15 minutes that this game could really be decided in. And the freshness of Monaghan having that extra week's break could be very telling against what would be at that stage a very, very tired Donegal team, you'd think.
You would take that, Sean, and you can't underestimate the week's rest that we've got. It's going to be crucially important. But look, at obviously the subs are going to play a massive part in this, and Donegal too have been finishing very strong. Donegal and Monaghan average nearly the scoring averages for both teams is identical in the second half of 14 and a half points or 15 points per game in the second half. Both of them are identical in that. So both teams are finishing very strong, but the big difference again lying slightly in Donegal's favour is the second half scores conceded. They're only conceding 6 on average scores per game, and Monaghan's conceding 9. So there's always that 2 or 3 point differential. And where I see Monaghan and why I'm so confident that they'll overcome that is because you're hoping that Rory will get a few cracks at the 2-pointers. And if not, that freshness is going to be crucially important. We're only talking 1 or 2% here in the last 2 or 3 minutes, and it's that 1 or 2% I think that we have that Donegal won't have, and regardless what subs are made, I just don't think they'll have it. They did nullify, as I said earlier on, our main man earlier in the last day. Stephen O'Hanlon didn't get the freedom that he would have liked, and Michael Bannigan was quiet enough from his high standards as well. So you would like to think that them boys will get a wee bit more room in the big expansive park that is Croke Park.
Yeah, it was interesting. We know that they met in the quarter-final of Ulster in St. Cheernocks Park. Donegal never afforded Rory Beggan any shooting opportunity from a foul, let it be for any sort of an indiscretion with the ball being moved up, or indeed any fouling out around that score and arc. So you can imagine that will be a primary focus, probably to try to cut that out. It was interesting, Davy Burke during the week come out saying that Rory Beggan's like a cheat code to Monaghan, because you do expect it when he moves up anywhere from 60 yards in, you'd be expecting Rory to put it up, and teams would be mindful of that. And in fairness, Donegal was the one team that did seem to negate giving away any sort of foul that could be costly.
Yeah, Jimmy McGuinness is one of these interesting characters. I'd be very much a fan of Jimmy McGuinness and would have followed him very, very closely over the last number of years, especially from 2013 onwards. But Jimmy, there's no doubt in my mind that these boys wouldn't be hoping for not to foul or to let Rory Beggan. These boys would have been coached this for the last 3-4 months, and all their coaching has been up to this point here for a quarter-final, All-Ireland quarter-final, the knockout stage on. And they don't foul. Donegal don't foul in around the D. They just don't do it. They're conditioned that way to not foul. So it could be a wee bit problematic in getting Rory on. The only where I can see is probably an infringement in the new rules, where maybe they hadn't got 3 up and the referee moves it up, and you get that opportunity to take it back out for a 2-point or an indiscretion off the ball or something like that. Sean, is that the only way that I see Rory getting a shot at 2-point, and I'm hoping that there's a few of them, because I can't see Donegal. I see them ultra-disciplined around in their defensive structure.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it'd be interesting even to look back on the stats of Donegal to see how many of those indiscretions they've ever given away, maybe about having too many up the field or indiscipline. I know maybe 1 or 2 that would have got caught, but the mark in the middle of the field has changed now. That seemed to be the biggest one for a while there. I know Monaghan against Down got caught with bringing too many over the halfway line, but at that stage, I think the panic or there was just momentum with them to try and get scores, and it was just one of those forgotten things then as well. But they are the sort of moments that can prove costly in a game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as I was saying there during the week too, the bookies have Donegal massive favourites. Like at Monaghan a 25% chance of winning. Like, and I just don't see that. I absolutely see this going right to the wire from early doors right through the last 2 or 3 minutes. We'll be on the edge of our seats. That's what I expect and predict. And that's what I'm talking about. You're down to them 1 or 2%, at that stage, and you're in the lap of the gods. And but you would feel that Monaghan would have the last 2 weeks, especially. I've been thinking about this. Just Monaghan, I said, have to tighten up in the defence. They're too loose at the back, and while it's brilliant going forward, and they're scoring massively. Like when you get to Croke Park, this is me talking to myself. When you get to Croke Park in your own head, they're going to be exposed to that. But when you think about it, God, I just hope that they really take this to Donegal, and that energy and that enthusiasm that they've shown. Took the shackles off, really going for scores from every time they're in possession. They're really going for them. I just hope that they really stick to that and bring that energy to Donegal. And if they can get that average down, we're only talking a couple of scores here. Like, you know, if they can just get that average concessions down to from 22 down to 20, you know, that's really all it's going to take. Small margins, and you know, a couple of other scores on the score sheet as well. I'd like at least Stephen Mooney maybe contribute a wee bit more for the goals, and we know it's in his armoury to do that. He's a fantastic forward. So of course, we haven't talked about matchup, Sean, or how we're going to win this game and how we're going to nullify Donegal's threat. And, you know, obviously they carry a lot of big threats with Michael Murphy and Oisin Gallen now back in the team and back and form 0-5 the last day out again Loud, and another threat to look at. And of course, the man that doesn't get much recognition is Conor O'Donnell. He is 2-12 scored out of the last 3 games. You know, so they have a lot of scoring threats, and of course the Fimber Rory and Brent McCole and Patter Morgan coming from deep as well. You know, they're a bit like ourselves, Sean. They've a lot of scores coming from deep running. They're a running team. You know, they let you the setup. We all know the way Donegal set up, very defensively. They have 11 men back, and Brent McCole generally doesn't sit in that defensive structure. He picks up the most dangerous, potent opposition forward, and he leaves that structure, and he follows the most dangerous forward everywhere, and the rest of them do tuck in around that D. You'll have 4 around the D and 2 in behind, and then the 2 or 3 man markers in behind that. But there is an area where Monaghan can hurt them. Down around Donegal's right-hand side, they're conceding a lot of scores in that defensive structure. Oisin Connery scored 6 points in the Ulster final, and Ryan Bourne scored 4 points, all from play down along that right-hand side, the opposition's left-hand side, inside that defensive structure. They really stretched Donegal, and Donegal were naive. I suppose there's a lot of gaps in behind the initial line of 4 or 5 defenders, and opposition are starting to find that, and you would expect Monaghan will expose that with their dangerous footballers as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that, like, it's double digits now of championship games. I think it's been highlighted that Donegal have played. So they've had a lot of exposure. So there's been a lot of opportunities for teams to see them. Monaghan, of course, as I noted earlier on, they met them in the quarter-final. And imagine that footage has been analysed now as well to look back on. And the one thing the Monaghan will take from it, I'm not going to say they offered them too much respect, Donegal, but they probably stood off them too much, particularly in that first half that day in Clonus.
Yeah, that's a great point you made. Actually, I never thought of that. The amount of games they played and the amount of analysis that's been done on them now, and obviously managers finding them cheeks in their defence, and that has certainly been the case. But yeah, I would tend to agree with you. Is it a lack of respect? I suppose with the high-profile name of Michael Murphy coming back into the panel and Jim McGuinness taking them on this year, they were put on the pedestal before the ball was kicked. And, you know, rightfully so, them's 2 big names in the GA world. And, you know, maybe there was a wee bit too much respect given to them. And we certainly did lay off them, and we were far more aggressive in the second half. And Monaghan would have learned an awful lot from that. And certainly what they would have took out of that game is the air of confidence that we can beat these boys. You know, we can actually beat these boys. And that's a massive thing, Sean, going into Croke Park.
It certainly is. And should we know 2013, 2015, when you were going in as underdogs against these Donegal teams, you were able to turn them over. There was some battles back then, and amazing Mr. Murphy still involved in them, and quite a number of the Monaghan teams still involved in those fixtures then as well. So a lot of history associated with this fixture.
I was talking with Kieran Kearns, and I asked him that time, you know, what was the preparation like before that week, and what did you do, or was there anything? You know, and there was nothing magic or anything about it. Besides, Kieran, you know, it was just all about getting the head right and getting the, you know, obviously the preparation right. But he was saying, you know, they knew within the first 30 seconds or 45 seconds of the game, if that big hit goes in or a big turnover goes in, just, you know, you're in it, and you would just hope and expect. I actually expect them on a team to come in with that air of confidence and that air of urgency, and, you know, not having that respect that they would have given them in the first half, and really taking the game, because I really feel that Monaghan have come in here unbeaten. Donegal have lost a game, you know what I mean, albeit by Tyrone are a fantastic team as well, but Monaghan on a serious run, and they're scoring very heavily. And Donegal will know that. They'll know we've a lot of they have a lot of problems to deal with. And as we noted numerous times before, like we've Conor McCarthy and Michael Bannigan and Stephen O'Hanlon, Ryan McInnesby, Andrew Woods, Stephen Mooney, scores coming from all over the pitch. Like there's only so many of them you can stop, Sean.
Absolutely, and it's good to see Gary Mohan, I know, was named to be on the bench. I'd envisage if Gary Mohan's on the bench, Gary Mohan's starting, because he has been the mainstay in around that area for the physical battles as well. So if he's fit enough to be on the bench, you'd envisage he's fit enough to start. Yeah,
he brings that athleticism to it as well, and obviously he has that physical attribute too, because Donegal are very strong around that middle eight, very physical, and they have a big decision to play. To start Hugh McFadden now, or do they stick with Jason McGee? Two big powerful men, and either or starting or the other one coming on is a big threat for Monaghan, and we will need to match that physicality. I know they have Gab McPhillips down there, but I would expect Kieran Lavelle to start as well, Sean. That he'll certainly bring that physical presence, and for me, that's the man that has to pick up Michael Murphy and maybe give Gary Mohan that free rein in the middle of the field. So it's going to be interesting in terms of matchups as well. We know that Dylan Bourne picked up Ocean Gallen the last day and went man to man. I don't know if that's going to be the case. He didn't. He picked up Patrick McBrearty, who won't be starting, Sean. Yeah. I'd expect Dylan to look for Ocean Gallen and pick him up as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And then, of course, if Patrick McBrearty to come in, he was Ulster's top scorer, 118 scored before he started picking up the Wee Eagles. So it's building to be a very exciting game. I just hope that Monaghan take the game by the scruff of the neck and dictate the pace of it, which has to be with urgency.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot about outfield players there. Two of the best number ones in the country going up head to head here as well. Obviously, we spoke about Rory, what he brings to the game. I would argue Sean Patton has probably perfected the game now in regards to restarts. It's been interesting to see goalkeepers maybe just suffer a wee bit or just not find it as easy to find players. Sean Patton, and this comes from movement from his outfield players. It comes from things they plan. But just some of his shot selection in the last few games where he has found scores. I'm thinking in particular the one that got the better of Mayo, that knocked Mayo out of the championship. It was similar. I think the goal at the weekend over Louth as well come from just a pinpoint accurate ball that was played out.
Yeah, top class. Yeah. It's no coincidence that the game they lost against Tyrone, Sean wasn't playing. Like that's what he is critically important. He is the key. They all talk about Michael Murphy and Ocean Gallen and Patrick McBrearty and the likes. He is the main cog in the wheel for Donegal. And he is like, does Monaghan push up on his kick outs? And then of course they have this kick out and they use it again loud when they conceded the goal again loud. This long 65 yard ball down the middle, straight on to Michael Murphy, who flicks it onto an uncommon runner. They done it in 2013 in the final as well, and it has worked for them. And he can pick you out from anywhere as well. He is such a top level goalkeeper. Distributor of the ball as well, and of course he's going to find more of that space in Croke Park given the expansiveness of Croke Park as well.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting just how you deal with that. And as I said, they seem to have it so well done in regards to runners going out wide on the wing and just the ability he has to drop it down in front of the runner or straight into the bread basket that they don't have to break momentum. You noted there with Jim McGuinness and how you follow him and pick up from how he approaches games and does things. Very telling. And again, I take it this is a game he's playing. How he focuses a lot on maybe some of the things he believes is going against his team, the travel they've had to do, the 6-day turnaround. He seems the siege mentality's been built, but I have noted it takes away from you ever speaking about the performance of his team. All the focus this week is the 6-day turnaround. This is the first time actually speaking to someone that you've talked about the players, what they can do and what can be done within the game. Is that a distraction that he's throwing in there?
Jim McGuinness is a sports psychologist by trade, and he's a damn good one out of two, so he is, Sean. I have read his book 3 times, and every time I've read his book, I've picked up something new. He's just a fascinating character, and the level of preparation that he goes into is just extraordinary. He delves into it in his book, so he does, and there's no doubt about it that that's what he's creating. He's creating that Seeds mentality, because he would have done that in past years too, and the Seeds mentality is not just so much about... Jim McGuinness is very proud of where he's from, the Donegal sense. And it's about Donegal. It's always about Donegal. It's never about the team. It's about, the whole world's again Donegal, basically. And that's that environment and that Seeds mentality that he creates. And they took him to Roscommon, and he was giving out about that, in terms of the distance Mayo had to come, the distance they had to go. The Ulster final was being played in Croke Park, and he came out very strongly about that, saying the Donegal people can't afford to be going to Dublin, looking out for his supporters. And now this 6-day turnaround, that is all building and building and building towards a Seeds mentality. And you make no mistake about it, that when they come out on Saturday, regardless if it's a 6-day turnaround or a 26-day turnaround, they will be very, very fresh and very well prepared, and with that Seeds mentality behind them as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like 6 days, it is a short turnaround, but the level that these guys are now prepping at and prepared at, bar a knock or an injury, physically, there's nothing to be taken out of them here. They've prepped for this.
Yeah. They've probably done one training session on the pitch, I'd say, this week, Sean. Like, you're not going to get any fitter or any better in a week, but you would get worse. You could get worse. That is by getting an injury or something like that. So, they would have started to recover straight after their last game, immediately after the last game, and every day since. So they maybe got on the pitch to do a light session to get the lactic acid out of the bodies and run it off, and possibly then they'll be doing a lot of analysis work, obviously, in Monaghan and on the lakes. But make no mistake about it, Sean, these boys will be 100% ready for Monaghan on Saturday. There's no doubt about it.
And then on the flip side of that, finally, no pressure on Monaghan, no featuring on Monaghan. Nobody's talking about Monaghan. This is where Monaghan thrives.
Yeah, it's like you're 100% right. There's one or two people maybe giving us a half of a chance, but it's all Donegal. There's all the pressures on Donegal. They're also champs at the end of the day. They've set their stall out. They want to be all Ireland champs at the end of the year. Monaghan's gone quietly about the business, albeit in fantastic shape, what they've done, dispatched of teams with enormous credibility and the firepower, as we talked about. Like, it's their second most top scorer team in the country, I think. So they've quietly gone about their business. They've got the extra week off. They're fresh. I would feel there now that they know that they have a real opportunity here to make an All-Ireland semi-final. And Sean, look at one day at a time, but aren't we in a brilliant position here? Both camps, suppose Monaghan supporters and Donegal supporters, just wishing or hoping and wishing and praying for teams to come out of a quarter final. Like, we're a very, very lucky county, and these team has given us such a great year thus far, and let's hope it's not over yet, Sean.
Absolutely. Well, we'll go with the thought Monaghan in an All-Ireland semi-final. In a few seconds, Kieran, who's the other three?
Galway, Dublin, Galway, Tyrone. I'm going to say Tyrone because Malachy, the old Monaghan manager's there. I'm going to go with him. He's an All-Ireland winner manager too. The other one I can't call it, Sean. It's going. They're all very tight, there's going to be a toss of a coin between them all, and there's nothing between them. Absolutely nothing. Armagh, you'd have to say, will come out the other end. They're in-form team, they've serious depth, and they're All-Ireland champions, but they're retaining an All-Ireland title. I see somebody back in the Kerry panel there from the Australian rules. The name evades me now, but Kerry definitely not going that well. They're very inconsistent, although they dispatched of Cavan with relative ease, but let them back into the game too. So you'd have to fancy Armagh, Tyrone, Monaghan, and who was in Galway.
Galway. Well, there we are. We'll hold you to them and see how things proceed. So we will. Kieran, thanks as always. And don't forget, as I noted at the start, the Monaghan Way Podcast in association with Northern Sound, you can catch them on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple platforms, indeed any other platforms that you pick up on your podcasts.